I'm Dawn Montefusco, life coach for writers and creatives. And this is the Ultimate Writers Series, how to break through resistance, ignite the muse, and honor your soul's calling.
Wow.
And today we have one of my very favorite people, Andrew Harvey. He's an internationally renowned religious scholar, writer, and teacher, and the author of more than 40 books, including the critically acclaimed The Hope, Son of Man, and Savage Grace with Carolyn Baker. Born in South India in 1952, Harvey has devoted much of his life to studying the world's mystical traditions, including intensive study of Hinduism, Buddhism, and Sufi mysticism. Welcome, Andrew.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to you. My God, what a gorgeous title for a series. I love it.
It really
Ignite
is.
your soul. Read it out again. I want to hear the words again.
How to break through resistance.
Break through resistance, your wretched monkey mind, all the stuff and the conventions that cloud you from your true self.
Get it out of there.
Yeah.
Ignite the muse.
Ignite the muse. My God, that's terrifying and wonderful. Yes.
And totally. And honor your soul's calling.
Now that is the key to everything. Absolutely. I love it. I love those phrases. Thank you for concocting something so gorgeous and inspiring.
What's interesting is I did ask my audience. So I started to listen very carefully to people who were calling me, to people in my group, to people who were emailing. And I was like, they're asking for something. So I actually went into I have a Facebook group that has a couple of thousand people in it. And I asked, I did a little survey and they said, please, can you do put these 3 items together? So the audience also is hungry because they're stuck.
Well, no, they're hungry also because they're trying to do something very rich and potent and exciting. Yes. They're trying to break into their authentic self and to learn how to write from that authentic, divine, spiritually inspired self. This is huge because why would they ask you to not only ignite your muse, but to write from your deep soul's authentic purpose? This is thrilling.
Absolutely.
People are hungry to do this.
Yes. Okay.
It's a time, don't you think, before we go on, but it's a time in which the very best writing is being done by people like this.
Yes.
It's being done by people outside the mainstream who are not buying the conventions of irony and nihilism, who really know that this age requires ecstatic, wild, breakthrough inspiration because we need the energy of the soul to get going and keep going.
Yes, absolutely. Right. Oh my gosh, I am so excited about this. But before, tell us what you're working on so that we can, follow you around and make sure we get there. What's going on with you first?
Well, I'm 67 and I have to tell you that this is the most fertile, exuberant, ignited whole period of my life. I've just produced 2 books in 6 months, which is huge for me. In November, I published something I've been working on for 5 wild, long years. I published 108 translations of the greatest mystical poet of the world with Rumi, the great Kabir, who lived in the 15th century in India. And I worked on these translations and I made them into a mystical symphony. And I got a crazy, wonderful Canadian photographer to accompany the text. And I am out of my mind with delight. It's come out and won the Nautilus Prize and the Kendall Prize, and people are ecstatic about it. And 2 weeks ago, I published a book with Carolyn Baker called Saving Animals from Ourselves, which is a vision of how we must change our whole understanding of nature and our potential relationship with animals so that we can start really doing something about this worldwide Auschwitz we've created, in which now 1 million species are on the brink of extinction. I'm a completely besotted animal lover. I have a cat who rules my life called Jade. She is actually, I'm staring at her right now. She's looking at me. She's very happy I'm mentioning her name. And it's the love that we've had that has inspired me to write this book. And I have to tell you that I've never felt as fertile and as exuberant as I do now, despite the madness of the world, or perhaps because of it. I think now is the time for all of us to ignite our muse and just go for broke. To
Yes.
give as much inspiration and excitement and energy to the great transformation that has to happen now for the human race to have a chance of getting through this madness that we've created for ourselves.
And writers now, so that what's happening that I'm seeing that's happening, and I have the question is, one of the questions is, so people feel it and they want to write it and they want to get it written, but then there's these imaginary authority figures in their mind. They get stuck because of, you know, all that energy that's trying to get us to shut up. Really, is in there. And so they'll even say, I can't imagine why I'm not writing, even if I don't show it to, I say, you know, you don't need to show it to anybody at first. This is for you.
Yes, to get to hear your own voice.
Get it out. What would you say to someone who's on that brink of finally getting it out, and then there's suppression? Something is in there.
Well, I would say to them, the best book on writing was written by Natalie Goldberg. And Natalie has the most amazingly brilliant technique for helping people, which is set yourself a topic. It could be anything. Pleasure. It could be Trump. God, don't do Trump. Something that really thrills you, and just write for 10 minutes. And don't edit, don't make commas, just write.
Is that the book, Writing Down the Bones? Is that the book?
Yes.
Yes, that's a great book.
It's the
Yes.
greatest book. And Natalie's classes are by far the best classes on writing. So if anybody wants to break through, go to one of her writing things. She'll blow your brains out, and she'll make you really force you in a beautiful way to just accept yourself.
Yes.
If you sit down and write like that for 10 minutes, some of it will be rubbish, some of it you want to burn, some of it will shock you by its authenticity.
Yes.
And when you get to those, after the 10 minutes, look at what you've done and write with a red pencil underneath the bits that really excite you and shock you and amaze you, and you'll be beginning to hear your own authentic voice. And the more you do that, the more you'll realize that you mustn't listen, and you don't have to listen to those voices that tell you, oh, you can't do it, you're not Shakespeare, why are you even bothering, nobody's going to publish it, who gives a damn about what you think, all of those voices. You'll realize, my God, when I write like this, I am excited, I am thrilled, I am possessed by enthusiasm. I have just had the most astounding experience. My goddaughter, this is a terrible story, has unfortunately tried to commit suicide a few times. And she has come through this, and how she's coming through this is through writing a blog of such astounding passion and truth and vibrancy and poetry. And she really has followed Natalie's advice. She said, one of the reasons why I was driven to consider suicide is my voice was locked in myself, and I didn't was interested. And then I decided, what the hell? I'm going to write out of my pain, out of my longing, out of my passion. And she has emerged to be a writer of such splendor that I'm going to actually deliberately have her kidnapped, because I'm so jealous of what she's writing in the holiest way. It's so beautiful. And she's now blazing with joy and purpose.
That's amazing.
It's about reclaiming your voice that maybe even you haven't heard and can't really hear until you see it blazing back at you on the page.
Tell me more about
I think that's good advice.
It's a phenomenal advice. And here's the thing. People usually, well, if we can get them to start. Now I have a group of women from around the world, and it's called createyourdreambook.com, meaning I'm very clear. I'm not here to talk about you being a bestseller. I'm not here to talk about the publishing world.
No.
First and foremost, create it. Write it.
Write it out of your guts. Don't worry about anything.
That's why it's Create Your Dream Book. But some of my students, clients, they get halfway through. So now resistance is tricky.
Oh my God, there's so many forms of it.
They get so excited. There's like 3 different levels. Some of them right out of the gate, boom, they're writing. Yeah. Some of them are frozen for a bit.
Right.
But then the ones out of the gate, like 3/4 of the way in, something shuts them down and they go, no, 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 this is terrible. This is terrible. And of course, slowly we work them through that.
Right.
What about that? What about the person who gets really excited right out of the gate? They're writing a book, and
Right.
start to doubt themselves. And all of a sudden, you know, and here's the thing, they have to go through the process and get out the other side.
Right.
Realize that mind and what do you want to call it? Like the hive mind of what do you want to call it? Like the hive mind that holds you back. Like there's a
inhibition in your mind. Yes.
Yeah, they're holding you back. Like
it's actually, I think it happens to everybody, even accomplished writers who've won some kind of prestige and fame.
Yeah.
I think the key goes back to childhood. I think that when you meet that kind of block, it hasn't got to do with any objective understanding of what you've done. It has to do with stuff coming up through the excitement of the process, which is actually a tremendous opportunity for you to look at all of the different people and conventions that have tried to silence you in your life. So what I do when I get to that point, by this time I'm 9,000 years old, so I have some sense of all of the people who tried to squash me, of all the people who said I'm too much, or why the hell should you ever write? And I bring them all into the room. I bring my crazy mother, I bring my father, I bring my grandparents, I bring my school teachers, I bring the people into the room or the people or the friends who were jealous or envious of my work, or the critics that didn't understand it. Of course, I don't think they understood it. I bring them all into the room and I look at them and I remember what they did and I say to them, you are not going to win. I am going to finish this. And I'm going to finish it on my own terms from the depths of my own true self.
Yes.
But in that process, I experience again the kind of wounding, the kind of silencing, the kind of suffering that they imposed on me, but I experience it from a place of meditation. So I've got an exercise for that particular situation, which is go in, first of all, dance. Dance, Tina Turner. Dance wildly to get you joyful. Then take that energy into quiet meditation. So you're still brimming with all that energy from the dance, but you're in a state of elated peace. And then from that confidence and that joy, bring in the people. Don't hate them. Don't judge them. Understand that they were all nuts and that they have their own problems. And then just feel again what they did to you and just say, I am not going to be governed by this. And then imagine golden light pouring down through your head and dissolving all of those voices, all of those blocks. And then just rest empowered from head to the bottom of your toes with that, and do that 9 times, and you'll find yourself infinitely more empowered. And then start, and then just start. The other thing that's really important to tell to people is the most important thing is to finish something. Don't let yourself get waylaid by doubt. Go forward, be brave, do these kinds of exercises. Finish the damn thing. Then leave it. And then you'll see that it's actually both better and worse than you think it is. The things that you thought are really tremendous really aren't quite that tremendous. They don't make Shakespeare look like a magazine writer. They're pretty good, but they need polishing. And the things that you thought were shaky actually have bits in them that are much better than you think. So you get a much more judicious view, but you have a sense of your whole arc. And then you can start really having the real joy, which is burnishing what you have, polishing the jewel, as I call it. So
that is amazing advice. I've heard a lot of things, bringing them into the room.
Yes.
And peace, and then gold light, just shining it out, and then go back to the stage. That's beautiful, really.
It's incredibly important, because otherwise, the less conscious you are, the more you're going to be sabotaged by these shadows. But the most important thing is not to hate those people, because it involves them again. That establishes a relationship again. Just say, I hear you, but I'm never going to listen to you, and you're not going to get anywhere near this, nowhere near this. And then you really dissolve their influence through the power of the golden light, which is the alchemical light of the divine that can really
Yes.
transform you. And then you're back in your true self and you're humbly confident and you go forward and then finish the damn thing. And then you'll get some spaciousness about it and realize that, yes, you've got to do more work, but then you work with other people who are your close
Right.
friends and they will have amazing suggestions because
Yes.
I found that I've got 4 or 5 friends of mine who really love me and really love my work and who are willing to sit with a manuscript in its first draft and then give me some unbelievably, sometimes batty advice, but sometimes truly transformative advice.
No, actually, I couldn't have said it better. I mean, you absolutely nailed it. I mean, really, you really nailed it. And what amazing process! What an amazing healing process. So when
It's
you
absolutely, because every completed work is a victory against all the stuff in oneself that says one's unworthy and unlovable and why should anybody listen to you? Even, I've written 40 books, but I go through that every book because for me, every book is a new adventure. I never repeat myself. I try not to. I'm always trying new forms because I have to keep myself excited. My God, how can I excite anybody else if I'm not excited? And every time the price of that is the vulnerability of meeting these old demons. But I can tell you that they get less and less and less convincing if you do the process like that.
absolutely, oh, you're a gem. You really are a gem. Okay.
Well, I
Next,
want 80% of all of
yeah.
that's it, because this is America. No. It's wonderful to give advice like this because I know that people will really get a great deal from it and that they will be able to write the hell and heaven out of themselves.
One of the reasons this is my 4th writing series, and I had Write Because It Matters, because I wanted people to realize it mattered. Write Your True Story. You were on that one. We talked about how your truth is very important.
Yes, your truth, nobody else's truth.
Right.
What really happened to you.
And then I did Write From Your Heart, and now we're doing the resistance and following your soul's calling, because it's all free. I give it away. And this is what I really believe in my heart of hearts that I've learned, is that the more you give,
Oh, yes.
just like, it's just give to give, we call it. You just give to give. I mean, there's really something huge happening, and it's happening now more than ever. And I want you to talk a little bit about this honoring your soul's calling, because here's my theory.
Oh my God, yes.
If you feel a knocking, if you feel a soul's calling to write, now not everybody does. Some people paint, other people build.
Yes, whatever your art is, yes, whatever your creativity is.
This soul's calling to write, and you don't write,
Right.
I don't believe you can truly live a completely fulfilled and happy life.
I would put it even more strongly like that. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus says, if you don't give birth to what's inside you, it will destroy you. If you feel this calling to write at that intensity, you have got to write, because what's really happening is that you're writing yourself into a new level of evolutionary presence. You're creating yourself alchemically through the process into a new level of your own true life. And if you don't listen to that calling, when the angels are knocking on the door saying, write, and you don't admit them and you don't start doing that, you're actually aborting yourself.
Agreed.
Right?
Agreed.
It's very important.
I really think people get sick physically.
But they get sick, they get depressed, they get bitter, they get nasty, because they feel they get curdled, just like yogurt that gets put in too long in the fridge. It gets dreadful. It would help so many people's deep emotional, spiritual, sexual problems if they could write from the depths of themselves when they encounter themselves, and especially that voice.
Yes.
I think the other thing that people are frightened of, and I wonder if you agree with me on this, is that it sounds a great phrase, isn't it? Your soul's purpose, your soul's mission. But actually, I think people are scared to death of finding out what their soul's purpose and mission really is, because in a sense, if you do, you're going to have to do something about it, right?
Absolutely.
So a lot of people spend their lives, I've noticed, flirting with discovering their soul's purpose,
Yes.
but not really daring to
Yes.
discover the soul's purpose, because when you do, you have to rise to meet it. So that's one of the very subtle resistances that goes on. But and when you realize that and start working with that, you also realize something that you and I both know, which is that if you truly allow your soul's purpose to speak,
Mm-hmm.
you'll be infused with such passion, such ecstasy, such wild joy, that it will give you the energy to live
Yes.
a much richer life.
It's life-giving. It's actually
Life-giving, of course, because the body is the embodied soul. Life is, at its deepest, the emanation of the soul. Everybody's true life is their soul speaking through their actions, their words, their lovemaking, how they arrange flowers, how they love their animals. That's a real rich, divine human life, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's subtle. I'm going to give you an example. I'm a poet. And
Wow.
I'm an award-winning published poet. And
Bravo.
I when I was in grad school, and I did grad school because I was a poor kid from the Bronx, and I got in, and I did really well. And so, I was the first one in my whole extended family to do something. I said, okay, I'll go to grad school. I was scared.
Me too. I was the first person who went to university. Yeah. I know what it's like. It's weird, isn't it?
It's weird. I was like, okay.
Right.
I went for fiction, and they make you cross genre.
Right.
So I crossed genre for a class that was required, and it was poetry. And I kid you not, this is how sneaky whoever's trying to get you away from your calling can be. I went to my counselor and I said, I want to be excused from taking the poetry class.
Right.
What am I going to be? A poet? I said, that's ridiculous. Here's why. There's no money in that. That's what we're told.
Well, that's true.
There's no money in that. Right? It can be.
Yes.
And then I said, what good is that going to do? Like, I'm here for fiction and learning storytelling. So it didn't matter. They said, you have to take the class. Well, I take the class, and something opens up, and the professor pulls me aside, and all of a sudden, none of my short stories had gotten published, but all of a sudden my poems were getting published.
Wow.
And then I thought, this can't happen. It's literally what I thought. This can't happen.
It's so funny.
And as I got older, I put it down. I was teaching, blah, blah, blah. Life went on, yada, yada. And I felt like I was dead inside. Something wasn't working. And in my 30s, I said, I'm going to start a small group of writers. And
this is great.
As I did that, not only did I get on stages, I still do spoken word and poetry, but what I find is if I'm not writing poetry, I'm not engaging in what I'm here to do.
Exactly. That's it, because if you write, let's take poetry, because I too began as a poet, and my deepest passion is for poetry. And that's why I spend so much time translating the great mystics that I've just done, which 5 years, but because I'm a poet and he's a great poet, and I tried desperately to be as simple in English as he is simple in Hindi. So it was very difficult. However, I think that if you have this passion for poetry and you let it out, it incredibly increases your creativity in business. I know so many CEOs, for example, people at the top of the political, economic, and business worlds who are secret poetry writers, and they know that if they don't write their poetry, they won't have the suppleness and creativity of mind to actually make the kinds of decisions that are breakthrough, creative decisions in their business life or their political life. Because it's the same mind that it's coming from. And if you narrow your mind and deny a part of your soul's hunger, your mind can't be infused by the creativity of your soul, which is infinitely more creative than anything that your poor old mind can come up with. Right?
Absolutely. And so whatever it is, so the thing that I wanted to make clear here is it was sneaky, meaning I kept thinking, well, I'm writing. I know I'm a writer while I'm writing. And then when I went through it was almost 5 years, I barely wrote a poem, and I felt, oh man, it was bad. And and everything was good. I was like, wait a second, my business is good. I've got my favorite car, and I've got, a house. I have a great boyfriend. I've got wonderful people in my
You're
life.
making me jealous right now. This is
Well, I had, you know, I didn't have kids. I couldn't have kids. So I wound up being like foster auntie to some beautiful
right.
kids. So I really put myself out. I said, what is going on? How is it that I could wake up every morning for this period of time and not feel alive and gracious? And
Right.
I actually went to a psychic tarot card reader that's very well
Ah,
respected and revered here in town. And I sat down with her and she looked me in the eye. She's a beautiful woman from New Orleans. And she said, honey, you're never going to be happy. You're going to die inside. Because I
right.
had asked her about poetry. I said, what about writing? I said it flippantly. Well, what about writing poetry? And so she said it with such authority that when I went home, I started writing poetry, and all of a sudden it was like someone took a black and white TV and created color for me.
Well, I get it, but don't you, when I'm hearing your story, what I'm hearing is this. I'm hearing you had a terrific relationship with your job. You had a terrific relationship with your house and your car. You had a terrific relationship with your boyfriend, but you missed out one person, yourself. You weren't in relationship with the beloved inside you, which is what the real poetry is about, isn't it?
I
That
love it. Yes.
private, intense, sacred relationship with your own unique expressiveness of the beloved, of your
Yes.
own unique self.
Yes.
And that's the problem for so many people, so many successful, vibrant people, is that they forget that the ultimate relationship, and I'm not talking about narcissism, I'm
Totally. I
talking
gotcha.
about soul relationship. The ultimate task in our lives is to cultivate the soul so that every other relationship can be infused by that fundamental relationship that we have with our own soul. And poetry
Absolutely.
is the most amazing way of coming to hear the voice of your soul, coming to awaken the creativity of your soul. And without that in your life, all the other things were still in black and white because you hadn't met you.
Absolutely. Gosh, that I felt like
Does that make sense to you? Am I just
I felt like you just aligned something in me energetically, and I'm not joking. Like I feel like the way that you explained it was so good for my soul to hear, and I know many thousands of people out there are going to hear that too, but you
Oh,
really
God, yeah. I would encourage every single human being to write poetry because it doesn't matter that it's not, who cares? Sometimes children, 13-year-olds, write the most astounding poetry because
but
they're
also
so
to be in
talking.
love with
Every soul
yourself,
talking is eloquent.
and to be in love with yourself. That's what I realized.
Yes, be
What you
in love
just
with the
said.
love inside your soul.
That's amazing. That's
The
amazing.
love of life, and the pain too, because the pain is also there waiting to have a voice, isn't it?
You know,
The
this is
soul's
a
heartbreak, the
segue.
soul's longing, yes.
The great segue. There's one paragraph in your book on in the hope.
Ah,
I,
yes.
I wanted to read because there's something here that you hit on in terms of your shadow
Oh
being
my God, yes.
necessary to shine there's two sides of the coin,
Oh God, yes, yeah.
and about sacred activism, because I feel writing is one of the greatest form of activism we can do right now.
When it comes from the soul, when it
When it
really is
comes,
plugged into the essential truths of life, it helps keep the human race's heart alive.
absolutely.
Because at the moment, the heart is being destroyed by a whole horrifying world. And I feel that all writers are like those people in hospital that jump onto your chest and beat your chest saying, keep feeling, keep relating, keep communing, keep celebrating life, keep being inspired. And from that, you can make sensible political decisions.
Yes.
You could find the energy to rise up and do something about these
Yes.
appalling problems. Otherwise, if you're not connected to that spontaneous life energy, you're going to be completely overwhelmed and paralyzed by what's going on.
Absolutely.
Writing is a form of sacred.
I'm going to read this paragraph on page 189. You said, I have come to discover that in working with both the shadow of the mystic and the shadow of the activist,
Right.
and transforming help comes from what I call the essential divine nature of both. I have described sacred activism as the third fire created by the fusion of the fire of the mystic's sacred passion for God and by the fusion of the fire of and the fire of the activists' sacred passion for justice.
Yes.
If you accompany your descent into the shadows of the seeker and activist with a commitment to fuse their two sacred fires, you discover a marvelous alchemical secret. The shadow of the mystic's addiction to transcendence can be illumined and transformed by the sacred fire of the activist's passion for justice, whereas the shadow of the activist's addiction to eminence, to radical action for its own sake, born out of the sacred outrage, but illuminated by sacred wisdom, can be illumined and transformed by the mystic sacred fire of joy and surrender to the divine guidance. Can you just in layman's terms,
yes.
Give us
look, mystics tend to float off into the light and leave the world behind. That's the shadow of mystics. Activists tend to be passionate about justice, but self-righteous and deeply, deeply Messiah-ridden, want to be messiahs, want to be the best and the noblest and all the rest of it. And that makes them pains in the ass and makes them create a lot of resistance.
Yeah.
So the great thing is that if you take the best of the mystic, which is the passion for God, and align that with the best of the activist, which is the passion for justice, then something amazing is born in which the mystic's addiction to going off into the light is healed by the activist's passion for reality, for the real world, and the activist's ego and blaming and shaming and self-righteousness and burnout, they're healed by the mystic's discipline of contemplation and peace and immersion in the presence. And that is a huge deal. That is the true secret of sacred activism. That's why this book has really founded a global movement. So many mystics are waking up to the fact that the world is burning and want to do something about it and don't quite know what to do. And so many activists are realizing that the old forms of activism aren't working. They need something grounded in something much deeper that will give them much greater strength and stamina and peace in the middle of all of this madness.
Yes.
So you have to bring the best of both together, and then you create a new kind of human being that is simultaneously very dynamic and very grounded in the spirit. And that kind of human being can take a lot of pain, a lot of difficulty, a lot of distress, a lot of defeat, a lot of discouragement, and keep going, keep joyful, keep purposeful. That's what everybody needs to try and align themselves with, I believe.
Thank you for explaining. I love this book, and you say it so eloquently and explain it, because I feel that much of my audience wants to make a difference.
Oh God, yes.
Get into that burnout, or they get into the I want to run away into the light mode, and so
Well, neither are going to work at this time. If you want to run away into the light, you're just actually leaving the world to burn to death. If you think that you're going to change this world by screaming at everybody and by outraging half of the people you're talking to, that's not going to work either. What could work is a very grounded, centered, peaceful, passionate person speaking from the heart to people in a related way and actually modeling a new way of being and doing coming from being. That can work. We don't know whether it will work, but we do know by now that it's the only thing that could work. And we've seen amazing people do it. We've seen Gandhi, we've seen Martin Luther King, we see the Dalai Lama, we see amazing people like Jane Goodall. We see extraordinary, ordinary people who continue to do extraordinary things with great grace, and because they have a spiritual practice that keeps them grounded.
Yes.
So let's get with the program and start coming together and do this. We can do this. Yes, we can.
Yes. I cannot believe the time went by so fast. I adore you. And
I love you back, darling.
And you really helped so many people in this interview.
I hope so.
I know you have, because I've done a lot of these interviews about resistance and honoring calling, and you have completely put it in language and given us solid processes that we can use to get out.
And the last thing that I'd love to say before we go, because of course we could go on forever and ever, is that the thing that I find most important to remember is that the divine is on your side.
Mm.
You have a great friend who wants you to realize your ultimate potential in the most beautiful,
Mm.
full, deep, profound way. And that is, call it God, call it source, call it spirit, doesn't matter what you call it. The most important thing is to experience it, and to experience it as your friend, willing to help you at any moment truly realize your deepest soul potential.
Ah.
You can remember that and realize that that source of power and source of inspiration is always here, always available, and do simple practices in your life to keep remembering that, then slowly the resistances will go and you realize, oh my God, I'm so much braver, so much wiser, so much more eloquent, so much more intelligent, and so much more helpful to others than I ever imagined I could be.
Ah, that is just gorgeous, gorgeous.
Thank you, darling. It's true.
Andrew, you even have some free gifts on your website. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I'm a great believer in free gifts like you. So if you sign up onto my website, andrewharvey.net, if you don't sign up after this, the karmic consequences will be terrible. I hope you will. The andrewharvey.net, you'll have a free audio of one of my favorite things, actually, that I've done called Body and Soul, which is a whole workout for the soul that wants to be inspired to be and do something real in this world. But if you go to my YouTube channel, that's all free. Especially what I would love to recommend to you is the series of new videos that I've been making about Kabir, this new book, Turn Me to Gold, because I've been reading the poems in wild different ways, and I've been giving wild talks about them, and I feel very thrilled about these talks and these videos. So I would love it if you would plunge in and enjoy Kabir as much as I do.
Oh, thank you so much. Andrew, it is always like one of the greatest pleasures to interview you and say hi to you and be around your energy, even if it's virtual. But
It's amazing what can be communicated in
it is amazing. And hopefully I will give you a big hug in person someday.
I hope so, darling, but I love you and I love what you're doing. And I just send my love and inspiration and joy and strength to everybody out there. Write the hell and heaven out of yourself, and let's get this world dancing for justice and compassion again.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And we'll talk soon.
God bless you, darling.
Bye-bye.